direction. Just look around and find at least something good. All you need will come to you. I'll never end you still.
Welcome back to Two Canadians at Kafe Lise, a bigger podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anton, and with me is the other host,
DJ Spencer.
and this is episode 11, and it's going to be another dev stream. We just did a dev stream coverage on our last episode, and we had planned, maybe we would talk about do a map, one of our map episodes, or we'd cover a map, but then they did another dev stream, and so we figured, okay, well, season 8 is right around the corner. Like, our next episode's probably going to be season 8, assuming everything releases on schedule, and that's in our new next 2-week schedule will be right around the same time. So our next episode will probably be covering season 8. So we figured, well, let's just do this next dev stream. They had Zane the bearded one on at this time, so I think with him and Parrot both talking about some of the questions that they went through. There will be some rehashing of stuff we covered last episode as well. So we may not go into full detail on everything. It all depends if Zane included anything that we think is worth talking about. So yeah, that's going to be it. We're going to be doing another dev stream. We'll see how long this one takes. Maybe it won't take a full hour like it did last time. A little bit over an hour last time. But yeah, let's just we'll just get right into it. Before they even started doing questions and answers, they just did a few things. Just said, it was more of answering the general question of why was the season extended, and they came back saying, they were doing more fine tuning on the new season that's coming out, so they weren't quite ready for it. Part of the reason they didn't extend the battle pass, and this is just the first few things they covered off before going to questions. The reason they didn't extend the battle pass, they said it was a small percentage of players who had actually completed the battle pass. They say 3%, and there's also something they mentioned at the very beginning too. Part of the reason they didn't add more levels is they're working on the battle pass system. They didn't go into detail, and I'm sure we'll be hearing details soon enough, as I think partners have just, at the time of recording, April 10th, some of the partners had just been given access, or they started the download. I think it was just a day or two ago, download of the preview build. So I'm sure soon we're going to be starting to see some previews and get a little bit more details. But they're working on the battle pass. So it sounds like there's changes coming to the battle pass. And that was in part some of the reason why they didn't extend it. Is that right?
Yeah, I kind of agree. They kind of mentioned that it was kind of like a new feature for the battle pass, or definitely a rework of the battle pass, where had they extended it, like you said, it would have affected the new one. And if you remember correctly, last season, when they extended it, I think it was Zane, he actually said that when they pushed that extension, it actually affected this season's battle pass.
Oh.
So they had to do a bug fix or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, and yeah, as per the preview build for all the partners, I believe it was Thursday that the update kind of went out.
Yeah, I can't remember. I remember watching somebody and they mentioned that they were downloading the new preview build, and they'd soon be able to look at it. Not necessarily give details yet, because they have to wait for Bohemia to actually say, yep, okay, you can start showing and talking about it.
Because they have an NDA clause, right, where they can't disclose anything.
That's right.
And typically I want to say it's almost like a week before the season releases that they could actually start talking about it. It's roughly a week before. So maybe like another 5-6 days and we'll start hearing things.
Yeah, I'm sure, because there's only less than 2 weeks left until this battle pass is done, like until the extension is done. Because in
Yeah.
2 weeks' time we'll be recording our next episode, and
Oh yeah.
and it's that week. That week is when the season ends, like Tuesday or Wednesday. It's Tuesdays usually, and then usually the Wednesday if is when the next season will start. Approximately, that's usually how it goes. So yeah, yeah, so it's coming close. So if it's that far, how that much time is left before the season? It's usually like a week before when we start hearing stuff about what they're
Hmm.
releasing. They'll release sometime like a little update, like
Yeah.
a preview thing, and then the partners will start being able to talk and show and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of think with the battle pass, I think they might be tweaking like the experience and how it's kind of like dished out,
Mm,
maybe by the crates or something like that. Because like this season here, you actually got XP from opening a shootout crate plus whatever crates within it, right?
right, right.
And when they first came out, like that wasn't the case. So like it could be something like that, and then that might actually make sense why extending the battle pass, if it is affecting XP from crates or something like that, maybe that's why.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to
Because
know. Yeah,
you have like weapons crates and resource crates that are very common and easy to get, and they're giving the same amount of XP as a rare
yeah,
crate. So you know that might be something they might be looking at or something. I honestly
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. It's really hard to know. So they didn't really go into much detail. So, but yeah. So well, I guess we'll just get into the some of the questions and answers that they gave. Um, will there be a wipe in the new season or update? No wipes planned. I don't know. And the last time they did a wipe was back when they officially released it for the Xbox. Um, it was kind of a. I think the person asking it is coming probably from the Tarkov mentality of whenever
Mm,
there's an update, they wipe the game, and so maybe they're thinking that Vigor will do eventually or does or will eventually do the same thing, and they say no, they have no plans on doing any kind of wipe.
no.
People who've been on the Xbox since the beginning have invested a lot of time on it. Switch is already coming up to a year, so people playing on the Switch have almost been playing for a year, just a few months off, and the PlayStation's been on for 90
Yeah.
days. So no, they have no plans on doing wipes.
No.
So good to know.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to know. Uh, maybe if the grind to like upgrade your shelter wasn't so big,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be more feasible to have that. But yeah, definitely like I'm up to I think 258 shelter builds, and it's like right now it's like one build is taking me like quite a long time to get it
Mm-hmm.
done, and I would not want to like start from scratch
No, and
again.
it's very
Um,
different. Yeah, because if you look at and you compare it to Tarkov, which is the direct comparison, when Tarkov introduced their shelter, yeah, there's a lot of different upgrades you can do to that shelter, but they don't take you a full year to get done. Like you can
no,
mostly get like, and they also don't have a set release schedule too. So Tarkov's a little weird that way.
no,
It's like you could be playing for months. Sometimes you could be playing as long as 6 months, and then all of a sudden we're doing a wipe. We're doing a new version and a wipe,
yeah,
and then you'll start from scratch again. But if it does, so sometimes you could be playing for 2 months, sometimes you could be playing for 6 months in Tarkov, and yeah, all your progress can be wiped. But like your shelter progress, the shelter upgrades aren't nearly as time consuming as they are in Vigor. Like I've been playing since
yeah,
June, and you've been playing a little bit longer than I have, and I don't know how many upgrades I have exactly for my. And this is on the Xbox. Is also play on the PlayStation,
yeah,
but I do have quite a few things at level 13. I have all my food productions at level 13. I have my tables at 13, and a couple of my other things like my water distribution and my utility room are at level 13. But I still have a lot that's not level
yeah,
13, so it's not going to be anytime
yeah,
soon that I finish it. And that's getting close to a year of playing. If they were to wipe it, now saying that, like, yeah, it would be a pain, but it would. I almost would kind of think it'd be kind of cool if they. I don't know. People might disagree with this, and that's fine. If there was a way to self wipe, for people who wanted to start over, like without having to create a whole new
Yeah.
account. Um,
Yeah.
and not necessarily lose your stats. Maybe you could self wipe just so you're beginning the grind again and finding weapons and collectibles and all that, but you might keep your stats. I don't know, but that's a whole separate
Um,
thing.
yeah. I know like there's a partner, so honorable bandits actually got the devs to reset his account.
Oh,
Now I don't know if that affected the account, but he's actually completed the shelter and he's like redoing it. He's like more than three-quarters of the way again. But I had actually asked him about that, and he had said, I'm never doing this again."
he's ever
So
wanting to like to start from
just
scratch again.
yeah, because it's the grind is just too much, right?
Well,
Um,
I guess, but
so
then I did that on the PlayStation. When I started the PlayStation, I started from scratch, and
yeah,
you know, uh,
but so did the whole player base, right? The
the
whole
whole
player
player
base was
station, the
basically at
whole
the same.
PlayStation player base did, but like not
Yeah,
everybody on the PlayStation is also coming from the Xbox. You know, so
yeah,
like there are quite a few people from Xbox community who also own PlayStations and do the same thing I do, play on both. But um, I didn't find like yeah, sure, when you're starting out, at the beginning, it is tougher because you're starting. You don't have a lot of selection of guns at first. It takes you a while to get the plans, and even once you get the plans, you may not be building those guns. And then, even in the PlayStation, the only guns I'm building are a few common guns. I don't build like the expensive guns, but I
yeah,
don't find it that bad. Like it's coming along, and it's not too. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't mind it as much, like starting from scratch again, even though it's on a different system.
yeah.
Okay, let's move on. That was the first question. Okay, um,
Yeah.
what are opinions on adding encounter-based objectives, i.e., something where you blow up a comm station or set up a radio tower or limited time modes? Um, so that was a weird one. They just came back saying stuff like the team is looking at the loot events, which were again those three different events that can happen, um, but um, they thought it was an interesting idea. Um, then they would need to look at how it would affect the flow of an encounter, and I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, and it's hard to know because yeah, I don't know, like going in and say like blowing up a comm station or sabotaging a comm station or sabotaging signal tower. It's going to be okay. Well, what is it now? Is it a race to do it, or it's going to be weird. Um,
Yeah.
it would almost be for people who play other types of games like me, and others who play stuff like Elder Scrolls Online, those kind of big MMORPGs. Um, it would be kind of neat if they could come up with quests, and they sort of do now. When you look at like your daily um, challenges,
Challenges.
sometimes you
Yeah.
get ones that are like, yeah, set up 10 whatever, like, or use 10 transmitters, use
Transmitters.
10 glints, that kind of thing. Um, and it'd be kind of neat if they could refine that. So it's not just set up a glint anywhere. It would be set up three glints in these particular spots on a map. So you have that challenge, and I can't even imagine what the programming would be like to try to do this. But you have a challenge, and you go into a map, and because they recognize you have this challenge, they have three different locations on the map that you could go to set up those things. It's like, here, go to this location, set up a transmitter here. Go to this location, set up a transmitter here. Like have and it could just show up on your map, and as long as you're within the general area that they're pointing out on the map and you do it, you get credit for it. I don't know
Okay.
how easy that would be to do, but
Yeah.
something like that, because a lot of these games, and it's mostly RPG kind of games, do similar things, right? Like, but they're an open world map, though they do have instances, because like if I'm thinking of Elder Scrolls, because that's the ones in my head because I do play that recently. Um, you're playing at the same time as a whole bunch of people on those servers or whatever. But there are different maps within the game. Like you can travel from one map to another map, though you can't. And there's like loading times between maps. So if I go off the edges of one map and to a different map, it takes me to a loading screen. So it is like putting you into a new instance, but it's a new instance that's perpetually running. It's not one of instance like these maps are, like encounters are. Like encounters are a 12-minute instance of an
Yeah.
encounter. You can extend it, as we've seen through our friend Half Metal Fox. If you have enough, did you see that video? If you have enough iodine,
The contact
no,
bomb
the
one?
iodine one. I think he used like
Oh no, I haven't caught that one
he
actually.
did one where he took I don't know how much I think is like as much iodine as he could, and I think he ended up
Yeah.
using like 30 or so iodine before it automatically kicked him out of the map. And
No.
the
Oh
automatic,
my god, I gotta check
it
that
was
out.
actually pretty interesting. It's kind of cool. It's pretty funny. He fast forwards through a lot of it,
Yeah.
but he got to around 30 or so iodine, and then it made him leave the encounter as if he exited the encounter properly. So he it showed him that yeah, he successfully exited. It gave him everything that he had, but it did have a time limit, and once he got to a certain point, it just kicked him out. But
Oh, awesome.
that's sort of separate of what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to think that other games have these little objective things where you go into an area and it shows you, hey, you go here and do something, you go here and do something. So it's not
Yeah.
out of the realm of possibility that they could do something similar. I don't know how much programming's
Yeah.
involved, but it'd be kind of neat to
Yeah.
maybe make challenges or objectives a little more interesting. That's all I'm thinking.
Hmm. Yeah, and like for the limited time modes, like like I think it was our wish list episode. Like you threw out an idea for like a game mode, and I
Oh, right.
threw out
Yep.
an idea too. The issue is like encounters. Well, it's not really an issue, but the encounters are the core
Yep.
game mode of Vigor, right? So, um, and it is a small dev team, so like in order to like dedicate resources to something like that, like it's kind of like hard to do anything like that type
Hmm.
thing. So, uh, that would be my thing, and um, like they further down in the dev stream, actually, I think it was for my question later on. They actually said it's a great idea. However, like right now, the priorities are bug fixing and working on season eight.
Yep.
So, I and they're like, we're trying to be honest here, and it's like, you know what, I respect it because they are a small dev team. People might not be happy hearing about that and saying that, hey, this is Bohemia Interactive. They have DayZ, which is massive, but I'm like, don't forget, like this is a separate team from DayZ.
Yep.
So it's definitely not the same
Hmm.
crew, and they have different resource pools. So, like I understand where they're coming
Yeah.
from. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
And they're also very different games. Like DayZ is almost a perpetual kind of world game. It has different servers, but each server's, I think, pretty much perpetual. From my understanding, if I've never actually played it, so I could be wrong. Um, uh,
but they do have
they do
wipes.
have wipes, sure. No, they have wipes. That's right. They do have the whole wipe thing. And they'll. But the reason I think of perpetual is um, Vigor's a very different beast where encounters are generated and then gone.
Con- yeah,
And it's
yeah,
it's closer to a battle royale that way. Whereas a regular BR, each match is its own thing and then it's gone. So
yeah.
this is almost like a BR, even though it's not a BR. It's closer. And it's closer to Tarkov because Tarkov is very similar. You go into an encounter or a raid as they call them, and it has a certain time limit, and then you have to be out of that encounter. They don't have radiation coming through, or they don't have a closing circle like some games. Um, but they have a time limit too, so it is more closer to that. But it's not perpetual. Not like, they have wipes, and they have we have seasons, but the encounters are what they are for that time, and then they're gone. So,
Yep.
what was next? What's the next question?
Will they be adding more, removing, changing weapons? So this one here, um, they actually came out with the exact count. So Vigor has 63 weapons. Uh, there's a lot of melee weapons, and they acknowledge they're not useful because the melee system just doesn't really work. And they've said it in the they've said it in the past. Um, like yes, they plan on reworking it, but it's not high on the priority list. Um, they also did, I guess, some kind of research too, and most of like the SG1 and the H bars are basically the meta, um, and they're trying to do moving forward is um, they're going to be working on all the weapons to make sure that they all kind of fire properly, they feel good, and it's a lot of work because it's not just like shooting and checking out the spray and stuff like that. You actually have to make sure, like, okay, is there bullet penetration against this material, that material? So it's not that simple.
Right.
Um, and then the big announcement, and to me, like, this was something I hold dear to my heart because I love the Raffica. Uh, the Zane announced that the Raffica will be going from a common to a rare item, which is blue. Um, so to me, that's interesting. I'm not going to argue against it because I think it's really a really
Mm-hmm.
good weapon. Uh, so if we basically go and compare the blue combat magnum, that is going to use 7,800 material, and it's going to take 20 minutes to craft.
Right.
So there's a big difference there. So I'm kind of crafting a little stockpile of Rafficas because I love the Raffica and I'm going to be using it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like get it at a little cheaper price. There is a little bit if for deconstructing it, like you're going to get a little gain, but honestly, you would have to craft a ton of Rafficas in order to make
Make it worth
like
your
a
while.
big
Yeah.
exactly. And like I said, I love the Raffica. I'm all the ones that I'm crafting, I'm never going to deconstruct.
No.
Unless like they didn't say if they were going to change like the gunplay of it, but um as is now, like I love it and I'll still be using it as a blue. I just want to get, a discounted Raffica if you want to call it
Yeah,
that.
because while they're quicker and cheaper to construct, it's a good time to make them. And yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm making a bunch of replicas. I don't know if I'll see how much I make. I'm not like going crazy making them like all day making
Mhm.
them, but yeah, like the amount of gain you get for the deconstruct, it's not going to be huge. And I guess it all depends if you get your um, chemical distillation all the way to max, maybe you'd get a
Yeah.
bit more of a bonus, but whatever. If I went, I'm not deconstructing blues for materials, because I'm not going to get a huge return on blues. If I'm deconstructing for materials, it's golds, it's iodine, it's
Yeah.
mortars, that kind of thing. So yeah, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I like that for Raffica too. Like, if I get a pistol challenge, I'm taking a Raffica because it's just so good.
Yeah.
It's just so fast and easy to
Best
use. It's
pistol,
the best
hands down.
pistol, yeah, for sure. So just changing it to blue, um, it doesn't really change it in my head. Like, it's still exact same gun. It's just whatever. It's going to take longer and cost more to make. But as far as gameplay wise goes, it's the exact same gun. Now, if they start messing around with bullet penetration or accuracy or that kind of thing with it, then that's worth, then we'll have to see at that point
Yeah.
How much has it changed, and is it still worth going to be using to use, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
All right.
rest in peace, Rafika.
Well,
Well,
it's not gone yet. It's
not really. Yeah.
it's just rest in peace, Gray Raffica. Yeah.
Yes.
um, Number four. The next question: cheating, exploiting issue. What is the studio doing to limit and punish those that exploit vigor? They were like saying, like, this is a very hot topic. They're aware of it. It's one that that they're continually looking at, finding ways that they can combat it. You know what they can do with it. Zane pretty much came out and said that duping is cheating. And I don't know if they've said this in the past before or not, if they've ever acknowledged it. I haven't seen every dev stream. Um,
I believe they have said
they
it
have
in the
talked.
past.
You would hope,
Yeah.
but it's just
Yeah.
reiterating, because there are people who will come out and say, "Well, it's not cheating. There's nothing against it. That you can do it." So I'm using my materials and I'm doing whatever, yada yada yada. But now that they're just reiterating the fact that yes, it is cheating. You're trying to duplicate something for free, or not for free, but for less time than it takes to actually make it on your own, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So they're working on stuff. It's something that they're discussing. Actions are being discussed, they said. So they didn't go into detail, but they just sort of just touched that. Yes, they're still aware of it. It's still something that's on their radar, and they are looking at it. So
Yeah, and like if you ever do encounter a duper or someone you suspect, you need to submit evidence to Vigor or partners, and so you do that by we did it like what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago,
something
Doc?
like
we,
that.
we were playing duos. So basically, if you suspect someone's like duping, it's like get a screenshot of the lobby with their names, um, and then if you catch you find their death box or you kill them and you get their death box, same thing, get a clip or a screenshot and then submit it to a Vigor partner who can then file a
Yeah,
report and send it off to the
yeah.
devs.
Or
Um,
even, and also on their, I think their Discord is another good place you could probably report it. I don't know if they said anything about not
yeah.
using the Discord. I can't remember, but
They pretty much said go through a
go
Vigor
through a
partner.
partner. Okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And usually you can tell. Well, you can't necessarily tell, but when you're in a lobby, and this is going to be when you're playing duos or trios, so it's not going to be something that you'll see in solos as much, because it's harder to coordinate. Not impossible, just harder to coordinate, because what's happening is in duos and trios they can go in as a team, so they start together, and you can usually tell if one person has nothing and another person has two of the same weapon, or two of one weapon and two of another weapon, kind of thing. You say, okay, there's a good chance that they're duping, because you don't know what's in their inventory. You just see what weapons they have, and then you watch it as soon as you go into a match. If there's a team kill right away, okay, that's what's happening. They're duping, and then you try to catch them. In solos, it's not impossible. It's just they have to sync up getting into a match together. And then, depending on where they start on the map, it could be the person who has nothing might be across the map, So it's not as
Yep.
easy, but it's not impossible. So I guess if you ever see a solo match and you see, well, and you're always going to see people with nothing, because there are people who like to go in with nothing, raid a bit, and leave. Um, but if you see somebody going in with multiples of the same gun, it's not necessarily something's going on. But there's a chance. So, but that's harder to catch, because there's no team kill to direct you to where they're going. It's just in duos and trios where you can try to catch it when they're doing team killing. You know where they were on the map at the time of the team kill, and you sort of book it, book it, and try to catch them.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly. And they are kind of looking at the team killing thing as well.
yeah,
they kind of mentioned that at a previous one, changing that feature.
Yeah, that was the biggest mistake
Yeah,
they made is when they changed it on team killing so that you could take the team kill off and then be able to loot your friend. And it's like, why? Why did they do that?
yeah,
And I'm sure they had a reason. Somebody had a probably a really good reason for it, but they didn't clue in that it would cause even more of a problem like this. So,
yeah,
okay, that's next one. Why penalize those that reach level 50 in season 7? And penalize is a harsh word. It all comes down to, and we talked about this before, and they mentioned at the beginning, um, is because they didn't extend the battle pass. That's what people are talking about by penalizing those who reach level 50. Um,
yeah,
and we were talking about this before we started recording. They came out, only 3% have completed the battle pass, and typically it's rare that more than 5% of players actually complete the battle pass. But what they didn't say, and what I was thinking, and then DJ was thinking as well, um, is that 3% of the installed player base or the created account base? So people who've ever, created a Vigor account, is that 3% of people who started a season? So like they have the stats of anybody who's logged in during a season. Is that 3% of all those people? Is it 3% of active players? So yeah, someone might have tried, installed it, tried it at the beginning of the season, and then hasn't played it again. But what about the people who are active? People who, um, out of the number of players who have played within the last, and this is where you have to sort of adjust it, 7 days maybe, that kind of thing. You can't say like in the last day because not everyone plays it every day unless you're a streamer or something. um, but if you give it like the last week, that kind of thing, then I'd like to see what those numbers are, or how are they basing these numbers.
yeah, yeah. And that was my question: is like how many bought the premium battle pass either by
Yeah,
like they won it in a giveaway from like a Vigor partner, or if they actually bought it with crowns or whatnot. Like
and that's a little harder to
because
tell
to me
too,
that
just because
yeah,
on Xbox it is a code you get, a battle pass code, but on PlayStation
yeah,
and Switch it's crowns. The only way that they can get the battle passes to buy it with crowns, and so I guess they get a code for the crowns, and so they can track sort of that.
yeah,
So I guess if somebody used a code to get crowns and then they had the premium battle pass, I guess they could assume that's how they got it, was through a partner. So I guess there's a
yeah.
little bit of
I
correlation, but
Yeah, I would just lump them
yeah,
in all
yeah,
together. Where it's like, how many people actually own the premium battle pass? That would be my
yeah,
question. How many of those finished the actual battle pass with that premium one?
yeah. How many of the premium players finish the battle pass? And then I could be kind of curious how many of the non-premium players finish the battle pass. I'd like to have multiple percentages. I just out of morbid curiosity, who is grinding a level 50 thing without the XP boosts? I
Yeah,
know we know it gets done. I just want to see how many people are doing it. I'd be really curious.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
What's our next question? Go ahead with the next one.
Uh, are you guys going to add outfits from the last update in the store? So, essentially, this is something that a lot of the question kind of originated when actually the Switch release came out
Yeah,
and is just kind of like grown in demand with the PlayStation release. Is people have wanted some of the outfits from past
from
battle
previous
seasons,
seasons. Yeah,
battle pass seasons, right? Um, and I'm not gonna lie, like I'd be interested in like the hunter outfit, but uh, I'll just before I give my opinion, they did say there is a feature in the work that there will be a way to get outfits from previous battle passes, and I think if I recall correctly, it should be coming out with next season, but I may be mistaken.
yeah. I don't remember if
Um,
they said it was going to be next season or not. Yeah,
yeah, but in I don't know. I don't know if I like it or not. Even though I want some of the past outfits, it's I don't know.
Well,
I understand like why a PlayStation or a Switch player would really want it because they just got the game,
yeah.
and but like me, I started playing in season three, and so I don't think it would be fair to someone who started in even before season one to let someone else get those outfits, unless we're talking about like those ultra rare exclusive ones that will remain kind of exclusive, like the Petka God jacket. There's the
Hmm.
Gamescom
Hmm.
jacket. There's an Xbox. Like, if those are going to stay exclusive and like ultra rare, and it's like you can't get those, then I'm kind of okay with that. Um, but
I'm yeah, I'm of two minds on
unless,
this, and it's not just for Vigor. Before the pandemic, and even now, I've been kind of board games have been a huge hobby of mine, uh, and how this relates, you'll understand in a sec. In board gaming, Kickstarter became like a huge thing in the board game industry, because
yeah,
companies could put up a Kickstarter and get the funding they need to get the game produced and out to people without having to have the funds of like a big company to just do it on their own, right? So they could pre it's like a pre-sell system. They could put a board game up, get the minimum they need so they know they can get the production done, and if they're lucky, they'll get a bunch more money and they can start improving the game before it even comes out, kind of thing, and then have enough money that they can also produce extra copies for retail. And what a big thing came out of the whole Kickstarter thing with board games is exclusives for the Kickstarter. And so, as long as you back that game on that Kickstarter, you could get in on the exclusives. And sometimes that could be special, depending on the type of game it was. It could be special characters for the game, it could be special artwork, or yada, yada, yada. And then as the game came out, say for retail, it wouldn't necessarily have the exact same stuff that was released in the Kickstarter. It'd still, be essentially the same game, but you wouldn't have the Kickstarter exclusives. and and that sort of created an aftermarket for a lot of this kind of stuff. So a big um, example of this is a game called Cool Mini, a company called Cool Mini or Not. If you're into board games, you'll know who they are. If you're not, they make a lot of these um, high-end miniature games, like games that use plastic miniatures, for various types of games. One of their biggest ones is called Zombicide, and another a big one is called Arcadia Quest. They have all these games that use these little miniatures, and in their Kickstarters, they always do these when they hit certain milestones, these exclusives that you can't get after the fact. So what happens now is anybody who wants any of this stuff, if they want it, have to go to like eBay and try to get it, and the hugely expensive for some of this stuff. You pay hundreds of dollars to get some of this stuff, and there are people who do it, but I've and you see it and it's like, oh man, I didn't get a chance to take advantage of this Kickstarter. I would love to have had some of this stuff, but I'm not paying that kind of money for it. I'm of the opinion that anything that's exclusive like that should be time-based exclusive. Say, I think it'd be more appropriate, and this is good for the company, not just for the players, that after a certain amount of time has passed, people who've had this exclusive stuff for a while have got to keep it exclusive, but then find a way to make it available to other players. And the way this relates to Vigor is the same sort of things. Like some of this stuff, like some of these outfits that were part of a season, make it available. I'm not saying give it away for free. Make it a crown purchase so that people would have to spend money to get these things. Then you're making Vigor, Bohemia is making some money that can go back into development, and then players who weren't around at those times could potentially have access to it. And who's been successful at this? Epic, right? Like they do a very similar kind of thing. with Fortnite. They're constantly releasing skins that um, sometimes are more rare that you don't see a lot, but then once in a while they'll re-release them to sell them, so people have to buy them. Um, but then
Like to a certain
I
extent,
guess they
because
don't necessarily do the whole season thing though. Some stuff
yeah,
that's true. I guess it sort of breaks down when you go into some of the stuff that they release during a season. It's more of the shop skins, I guess, that come out, don't they?
yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
guess what I'm saying does loses a little bit there with Epic, but they have done it though. Like not the
yeah,
season skins, but they do have skins that like there was a one that took forever. Like it was like one of the most popular ones. I think it was the Red Knight or something like that. I think they had a Red Knight skin that
yeah,
um, was out there and only not everyone had it, and then eventually they re-released it so more people could get it. But that's not a season skin, so I admit that that's a little different because it's not a season skin; it's a shop skin.
yeah,
Um, but I'm still the opinion that after a certain amount of time, it's the same thing with the blueprints. After a couple seasons, the blueprints will become available to people. Um, Maybe wait longer. It doesn't have to be after a couple seasons. But I think whatever, it's a skin. I know people like to feel
yeah,
special and they like to look different than other people and whatever. Um, if it's a way for Bohemia to get some extra
yeah,
money, then I say go for it. Yeah, because I know they
yeah.
do spend. Their crowns are too expensive as it is. I still think they need to adjust how much
Oh
crowns are
yeah,
worth. But I do want to see them
100%.
succeed, and I do want to see them do more with the game. So if there's a way for them to make more money and get people some of these skins, then I say go for it. But that's me.
Yeah, I could somewhat agree. Like just don't make stuff like the founders packs that came out with Xbox and
Yeah.
Switch. Don't make that available. And like I said, the Petka is God Jacket, like all those other
Hmm.
ones that are ultra rare and exclusive and weren't part of a season. Yeah, don't make those available. Even though I would love to have
Yeah.
a couple
I'd
of
like to
them,
have them too,
but
but yeah,
uh,
it would be yeah, I get it.
yeah. So I think we can
That's almost
move
the
on.
opposite. Yeah,
Kind
that's
of.
almost the opposite problem like of like of Epic in a way, right? Because it's the season stuff that never comes out again in Epic, but it's like some of these other things. Well, they're not necessarily exclusive. Have you ever done exclusives like that? I'm kind of curious if Fortnite's ever done anything like that, where a skin has come out for um the
Where you had to have a code to get
yeah.
it.
I
Uh,
don't know if they've ever done anything like that, but I don't know the
I
history.
honestly don't
Yeah.
know. I started in coincidentally the same season as Vigor, season three. I guess I wait 3 seasons before I actually start playing a
Yeah.
game. Um, so, but yeah, like season three of Fortnite was when I started playing it, and I didn't even buy the battle pass, and I should have
Mm.
because I missed out on that John Wick skin,
Oh, the
which
John
was
Wick. Yeah,
amazing,
yeah.
like the original one.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I honestly don't know if they've had exclusive skins like that. Actually, no, they have had. Oh my god, they had it like 2 years ago. There was the peppermint pickaxe, and it was an exclusive code that you had to get through like EB Games or GameStop or something like that. I
Oh,
think,
okay. I don't remember.
and it wasn't available in store. So I guess you could kind of compare it to that.
Okay.
So they must have done something like that
I
prior to
guess
that.
so.
I
I
would
guess so.
assume.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I guess we did separate this as a separate question, but it probably should have been. Was going to be a season 8 theme, but they didn't really say anything. They say it's a surprise, and the partners will be able to preview
Yeah.
soon. So, okay,
And usually around the same time they release a teaser trailer
yeah,
too.
there'll be a teaser
So that'll
trailer.
probably be coming up in a week or
Yeah.
so.
Next one was DJ's question. So you want to take this one?
Yeah. So I asked, are there any plans to add additional number of preset loadouts? Which they said essentially again, like covered it earlier. Never say never, but it's not a priority, and they're focusing on bug fixes and season 8, and they admitted that that's the case, and they just don't have
Yeah.
time for that. But they said it was a good
Yeah.
idea.
And they
So
had even mentioned the fact that, because I think, I'm not sure if it's part of your question or what, but yeah, I think it was part of your question, where like someone like Honorable Bandits they have redeemables where they'll go
yeah,
in with a specific loadout, and if someone has that redeem.
yeah,
So you even brought up, I think, that thing of, yeah, could they have like an extra loadout so that or
yeah.
people could have an extra loadout for that kind of thing, or whatever. And yeah, so they
Yeah, it was actually part of my
yeah,
question. Like I
yeah,
specified that, but yeah, they brought out Honorable Bandit as an example type
right,
thing, and a few other ones too. So, um, yeah,
yeah. Visiting other people's shelters, not happening. And the big thing is, it's not an easy thing to implement, and they just don't have the resources to even look at something like that. So I know a lot of people would
yeah,
love something like that, but it's not going to happen. At least not for the foreseeable future. So who knows if it could ever happen? It's not going to be anytime soon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Next was info on an Easter egg, which I actually didn't even know about. The photo above the fireplace
The developer and his
is
dog.
actually a member of the dev team and his
Yep.
dog. So why have that pic if the Outlander has a cat, according to the food in the shelter?
Yeah, if you run around the shelter, you'll see a lot of like cat food and that kind of stuff about.
Yeah,
It's a weird little question. It was kind of funny. Um,
yeah,
and Zane basically said, "Well, maybe your Outlander has a cat. Maybe they don't. Who knows? It's up to you. I guess, does your Outlander have a
yeah,
cat? Maybe you have a dog and you feed your dog cat food because that's all you could find." Or maybe you're
yeah,
eating the cat food. You are trying to get food from wherever you can, I guess. So, right? There's been
yeah,
weirder
exactly.
things out there.
In the apocalypse, your dog's going to eat cat
Yes,
food.
everybody's eating cat food if that's all there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just
So,
said there was nothing mysterious about the Easter egg, and it's just one that got thrown in. I do remember that being mentioned a long time ago. I can't remember when I first heard about it. Someone talking about how that picture was of a developer and his dog. So I've known about that for a long time. So
yeah. They they did mention too that the newspapers around the shelter also have picture of the developers too.
okay, yeah.
Um, so, and they kind of like dropped another hint that there is another Easter egg on, I think it was Fisk, um, that there's a new Easter egg about a sound,
Oh.
but they didn't really get into it too
Yeah, I heard
much.
them talking about
So,
Christopher the Beast.
the Morse code,
Uh,
yeah, Christopher
Christopher
Beast.
Beast running, having to run around that map now trying to find it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because he does a ton of research on
Yeah,
Vigor and stuff, and he's found all these Easter eggs and stuff like that. So he said, I think he actually responded in chat saying like, "Well, I guess I know what I'm doing the next, little
yeah.
bit."
So there's something. Apparently, there's a sound cue or something on Fisk. So it'd be interesting to see what that is. We've already had a couple Morse
Yeah.
codes, so I'm kind of curious what it is myself now too.
Yep.
Um, Are there any plans for more slash new interactive things on the map, like the signal tower? They basically came and said that quite a bit's been added since the game first came out. How they've changed it quite a bit. There's nothing that's currently a priority, but it does sort of. There are, I guess, they are working on a few things that this kind of hits on. Similar to like the openable exits. That was like one of the things that they did this season. Um, so I guess they are looking to add some more stuff to the maps to help with the immersion, to help create more immersion, but we don't know what that is. They didn't really give any details. So,
Yeah, I think it was like just reworking how
the
the
exits
the
work,
lock
and
and
yeah,
open L exits are,
yeah.
but um, I like honestly, I don't think they said anything else other than like adding or removing anything like a signal tower,
No,
comp
nothing
station.
specific like that. Like no new
Yeah,
big things like the last big thing really was the if you're not counting the lootable stuff was the disruptor tower, because then you
yeah,
had a disruptor tower, you had your comm stations, and you had your signals tower. So that was sort of the last
yeah,
thing. Um, I'm trying to think now. I know, there's a time when, and I think it might have been a
There was just
bug where you might have a signal tower and there was times where it didn't show up on the map or it wasn't there. I think they've gotten it to
yeah,
the point now where signal tower is always there, disruptive tower is always
yeah,
there, and then a random number of comm stations are there. I think that's been
yeah,
pretty consistent this season. So I think they've got that worked out.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Because that was actually kind of fun having
When there
a
wasn't
map with no
no signals,
signals.
yeah. Or if signals was there, it wasn't, maybe it wasn't showing up properly or what, but I think it's always been, I think it was the fact that it wasn't there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it wasn't there.
Okay.
I kind of liked it.
It was neat, yeah, for sure. This one
Uh,
was for squads, I think, right? Oh no, no.
uh,
Next one
are
was.
you going to
Oh, I was
add?
looking at that one. Okay, go ahead.
Are you going to add? Are you going to do a new map add-ons to choose from? Uh, are you going to new?
Are you doing new shelter
I guess
add-ons?
adding. Oh, okay. Yeah. So they're talking about there's going to be a feature, um, like in the interim for people that are max shelter that they're hoping will kind of appease them. But long term, there is stuff in the works and kind of like end game stuff that they're kind of working on,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not coming anytime
Yeah.
soon.
And I was kind of confused with the first part of that question. I was wondering if the person meant like right now when you go into an encounter, there's like you can boost loot, you can boost the crate, and you can get insurance. I thought maybe
Oh,
they meant something like that. Is there like anything new going to be, that kind of add-on? I thought maybe
oh,
that's what the person
okay.
might have been asking about. They didn't answer anything like that, so I think they were just talking about shelter
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes.
So
Yeah, they
yeah,
did.
so I was kind of curious. Yeah, and so the fact that they didn't clue into that may have been what the person might have been asking about, and they didn't say anything about that. I don't think there's anything like that coming.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on a ready up button when playing in squads of 2 to 3? Could be nice quality of life update. Um, they basically said can't say yes right away. They understand it'd be nice for groups. Uh, uh, So this is like a shelter thing then, right? If you're all in your shelter, is this sort of
No, it'd be a lobby
is it
thing.
a lobby thing? So what how's it any different than it is now? Like everyone does have to ready up, and if otherwise
It
you wait
would
for the
be like
counter to end.
you so like say you run to like the kitchen to get yourself a glass of water
Right.
and then you just tell your group, okay, just whenever you're ready, just ready up and like you're readying up your whole squad essentially.
I guess.
And honestly, like I could see it a quick little thing.
But that
um
almost be like a. But then again, see, I almost think that this is more of a ready up to go into the encounter. So like everybody's at their shelter right now. One person initiates the thing. Um, so and it's sort of the same with like again Fortnite. Nobody can go into an encounter until everybody readies up. Right now, one person starts the search for an encounter, regardless if everyone's ready or not. So I think
yeah.
it's more of a shelter thing where everybody. So like I got my loadout, I ready up. Somebody else, and then so that everyone knows, okay, he's ready. And then when the last person's readied up, then the encounter search can happen. I think that's what ready up means.
Well, it's the little thumbs up
Yeah.
in my
Well,
opinion,
essentially.
right? So that's all it is like basically the same thing as you're going into an encounter and everyone's like, yeah, go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I think the difference is in games like Fortnite and that there are chances if you can get into groups that you could group up with people you don't know, um, and then and I think it's even maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have to be friends for you to be able to play with them, like to regroup with them. That's possible. I don't remember. Um,
Yeah, you have to add them as a
you have
friend.
to add as a friend, so they won't show up in your team unless you've added them as a friend. So usually using if you're playing these kind of games, you're using some kind of voice comms anyways. So it's not often that you're not. talking to the person. But I guess there's still a chance that that can happen. You could be playing with people and not necessarily talking to them. Um, and I guess it's possible because I think still in games like the Switch, there's not a cohesive voice system that everyone can easily use. So having a way to easily give your thumbs up so someone can start searching for an encounter would be nice. Um, but yeah, like they said, it's not something that they're currently working on, and who knows if they will in the future. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, I think we could skip that
yeah,
next
yeah,
one. Any plans for crossplay parties? Uh, Again, like it's been talked about over and over again. It's not. It's kind of out of their hands. Sony, Xbox. You know, they just don't get
yeah,
along. You'd have to have separate servers, and like we talked about it last dev
yeah. So
stream.
we don't have to
So
worry about that one.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
limited number.
Limited.
Yeah, sorry, limited number of armor
Yeah.
plates or portables. Um, again, that's and that sort of limits. That doesn't really go back to the duping, but it a little bit does. It's
Yeah.
something they're looking at, but they couldn't go into detail.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've talked about how like before portables are used by like 90% of the people that responded to a survey, so they are going to look at tweaking portables in some shape or form, but they just didn't get into detail
Yeah,
before.
yeah. Doo-doo-ba-doo. Um, shooting range challenges. They haven't added any in a while. And apparently has been something they've been discussing. Um, they'd love to look into these again and add new ones, but nothing's going to be coming up with the next update. But they do want to do more, so it might be a season or two before we you know, see any new ones. But they have been thinking about it and they do want to do it. So it'd be nice, if they add something in for some of the weapons that because they've released quite a few weapons now that haven't had any kind of
Yeah,
challenges. Yeah,
I want to say it's almost like 10 weapons now that don't have
yeah, it
challenges,
might
roughly.
probably, yeah, not including,
I might be like I might be like wrong there,
yeah.
but I feel like it's been quite a
If
bit.
they ever get knives figured out, melee weapons, it'd be kind of cool if they could do challenges for melee weapons. But then it'd have to be ones where you have to leave that little enclosure and start running up to the scarecrows. But it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if they ever got that
Unless
figured
it's
out.
throwing knives.
Throwing knives. Oh, throwing knives. You think crossbows are hard to use? Let's get throwing knives in the
Yeah,
game. That'd be kind of neat, though.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whoosh, whoosh.
Um, yeah,
And how
exactly.
many could you carry?
Um,
Like you throw a knife. Oh, I don't have my knife anymore. So now what?
yeah. You need like disposable ones
You'd
or
have to have
something.
like I have like six knives in my inventory, so you'd have to be in your inventory, and they'd like cycle to your
Yeah,
hand or something. I don't know. It'd be I
yeah,
yeah, I have no clue. Like knives like ammo, so like they you could have so many knives in your hand. So like your melee hand or whatever for pistols and whatever would show 10 knives, and so once you're done those 10 knives, reload, which means get them from your pack into your hand again. Eh, it could be done.
yeah. What next question was why can't you do multiple gun crafting like ammo? Um, to me, I've I've said it before, vigor should kind of mimic real life. If you're out in an encounter, no one's home, no one's crafting these weapons. There's no like automated machines or anything to craft
Yeah,
weapons. So that's in my mind. Um,
and I guess and some of this we have to come down to. Some of it's realism, some of it's quality of game. Like yeah, the gun thing is more realism. Like if you're crafting a gun, you're there crafting a gun. There's no automated thing. Ammo, in theory, should be the same. Ammo isn't just I'm making 1,000 PPSH rounds. It's okay. I want 1,000 PPSH rounds. To make the thing.
yeah,
It's not a simple. It's
yeah,
not. There's no. Where's the automated thing for that? So yeah. At some point, you have to say. yes, okay, ammo is going to be the exception because otherwise you're never going to have ammo, and you're only finding ammo in game or something stupid like that. So you had to make an exception for ammo, but guns is just a little bit too far, I guess, right? Queuing up guns, yeah, would break
Yeah,
the realism a
exactly.
bit too much, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, they even have different. Oh, Pierre was sort of talking about. This isn't really a question, but as they were talking, she sort of talked about how even within the team, they have different opinions on how gameplay should be or could be. And one of the things is like Zane was talking about the ability, say, to reload a gun while running, which you can't do right now. But somebody who's practiced or done this kind of thing in real life, could run and reload a weapon at the same time.
Yep.
But then they sort of came back to the point that your outlanders, your survivalists, you're not necessarily military trained people. So you're not people who come out of the military who've had training, who've spent hours and hours and hours training with a weapon and being able to run and reload in combat situations. You're a survivalist. There's been a world war or whatever's happened. You're a survivalist. You're a person who's adapting to life in this new world. You don't necessarily have those skills, and it's not a game where you're building those skills either. It's like ev other than your shelter changing, your character doesn't really change. So until they
No.
and there's no discussion of this, if they ever brought in like a skill based system, where like your character could gain skills, who knows, maybe at that point they could look at some people being able to do that, but then you're sort of giving a huge advantage to people who have leveled up their characters to a point that they can now run and reload at the same time, whereas someone has to sit still and reload
Yeah.
or whatever, right? Then you're talking to a
Yeah.
whole different
It.
game. And then you're talking about Tarkov.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of ties like the shelter is it's like the water distillation, right? You get that maxed out, you have Instacraft,
Mhm.
and that's kind of like a skill that your guy's getting better at crafting
Yeah.
consumables, right? In a way, um, yeah, the skill like experience type thing, like it is interesting, but like that would be kind of like a big refactoring, I think, of how Vigor
And
is
then
right
that
now.
would, yeah, really separate the people who play the game a lot to the people who are more casual with the game. And
Yeah.
then you get into a Tarkov situation where you have the people who play all the time in Tarkov, who get their skills and abilities, on their characters, leveled up and really high, compared to the people who don't play a lot and their characters. And you see it like, somebody who's been playing a long time, their characters can run like crazy. They're fast, they can carry a lot, and they do, and all these kind of advantages. They're quieter, they can sneak around quieter. Whereas somebody who's more casual and their character hasn't been leveled up, um, yeah, they can't run as fast, they can't carry as much, they can't be as silent. And there's that's a big difference in that game. And if you were to try to do something similar in this game, it would totally ruin. I think it'd probably ruin the game. Really, I think it would ruin the game.
I don't know if it would ruin, but it would definitely
It would change it.
have a big
It'd be a
mark
huge
on it.
change. Yeah,
Yeah.
if it didn't ruin it, it would
Yeah.
be a very big meta difference. And
Yeah.
you have people complaining now about stuff like people who have advantage because they maybe can make armor
Armor
plates,
plates.
and other people can't
Yeah.
make armor plates. Then you'd have even more people complaining. So yeah,
Yeah.
if they ever got to that point, it'd be at the time when this game is so big that they could do that kind of thing, and if they alienated a certain percentage of the player base, it wouldn't be a huge hit, right?
Hmm.
So, but they're not at that point. They may never get
No,
to
no,
that
no.
point. So, well, that
Um,
one, yeah, the next one was kind of a neat little thing. What was that one?
Why does the radiation not affect the environment but affects players? Um, Actually, like I liked it. They actually used like a real life example. They said like, look at Chernobyl, right? You know, plants, nature's growing back there, but if a human being goes, you're going to
Yeah,
die.
and you spend any
So
kind of real
if
time in it, yeah, you're gonna get
yeah,
radiation sickness and
mhm,
die. And they're talking about how it's more of like a storm that sort of blows in. So like here comes a radioactive storm, like dust. It's sort of blowing in, but it's not staying. But it's enough that you want your guy to get out of there, and that's what's ending the
yeah,
encounter. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. So it's not the same as like a bomb going off or a nuclear explode, like um, a power plant blowing up. It's more of a gradual thing as this stuff sort of washes over the land once in a while. Yeah. Um, Please can we have more sneak peek for next season? No, but that doesn't make it. Yeah, they already talk about that, but they they did mention that they are taking away the anti-camping mortar strikes, so that's huge.
Yeah,
They are reevaluating, and they're Did he say Trino? He did, didn't he? They're reevaluating how to deal with Trinos. They said, and I thought that was hilarious. And for those
yeah,
of you, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably know, but the streamer Kino, one of the UK streamers, has this whole little thing where people were calling him Trino, and it even made emotes on it and everything because he stopped in a bush once, basically. He stopped in a bush
yeah,
once, and then he got the nickname Trino. So, and so
yep,
that's become a thing now. It is now in Vigor lexicon Trino.
yep.
And he changes the eliminations. They're looking at it, so nothing really to talk about there. And they say it may not be until like seasons 12, 10, 11, or 12, or further down, further down this year, where things may actually happen with eliminations and shootouts. But they are looking at it. It's just not
Yeah.
not it's not going to be this season and may not be next season. So
No, it's low on the priority
yeah.
list, and like this is another repeat
Hmm.
question, and yeah, down the line,
Yeah, and
yes,
they even but the only
essentially.
reason to mention is because they did say that it could not be until like seasons 10, 11, or 12. So it's something
Yeah,
they want to do, but they're it's not in the short term. It's going to be in the long term. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Um, Changes in gun combat, we kind of covered that
Hmm.
earlier,
Yeah.
so that was another question. Um, Changes to armor plate. There was a question about changes to armor plate and should they be accessible to lower level players. You know, we we kind of like alluded to it before. I think the last podcast where you have the battle pass. You get that plan, and then uh, you could gain a plan from a previous battle pass.
Yeah.
They had announced it was 2 to 4 seasons after the fact. So I believe if we go based off of that, next season you may start seeing the armor plate plan in the item shop
Yeah.
or in crates. Um, Zane said he wasn't sure about um, uh, like if it should be like if it was a huge advantage. He kind of gave a couple of examples about like how it's used, but
Yeah, there was
um,
another like further
yeah,
along. He talked about it again. Someone asked about armor plates and how um, higher level players have more of an advantage because of them than lower level players. And the whole thing with like higher level and lower level is a kind of a weird example because if you have access to armor plates, it's because you were around the season that they came out or you're getting them in encounters. But it's almost like armor plates they're very situational. It's like, yeah, they give you a little bit of extra protection as long as you're getting hit in the torso. If you're getting hit in the head, doesn't matter. And
yeah,
so it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to die if you get hit in the head. Um, he did, and then later on, he sort of gave the example of, maybe it gives you a few extra seconds if you come across a camper and they shoot wildly at you and they hit the armor instead of your head. But it's one of those weird ones, the armor plates.
it, yeah. To me, it's like it's part of the grind, right? To get it, you can't just dish it out
Yeah.
to everyone, in my opinion. So
Yeah, but people who get caught up on that, oh, I'm a new player, and there are people out there with armor plates, and I can't compete. Well, then maybe change how you're competing, change your style. Like if you're trying to be a runner and gunner, and you're just starting the game, and you're getting frustrated because people who've been playing the game a bit longer have armor plates, then change the style of game you're playing. Maybe don't become a runner and gunner right away. Wait until you're at the point where you're more
yeah,
confident with your shots, that you're getting more headshots than you are body shots, right?
yeah,
But
yeah. It's like you need to evolve as a player, and
yeah,
like I started off as a looter, and now I'm kind of gradually going more for kills compared to before.
yeah,
So, I yeah, you can't just jump into the deep end essentially, right, and just become like a killer
hmm
um, right off the bat.
yeah.
So
Someone asked about more stats, like headshots or kills per gun kind of thing. So they want like more detailed stats, is what some person was asking about. Um, and they admitted that, yeah, they can understand that there are people who like to see all those kinds of stats. There are people who are really into stats. They said it's more of a question for the future. Um, and like, is it like something that everybody's really interested in, or is it just a niche player base that are interested in this kind of thing? And how much work do they do on something like that when it's only really interesting to some players, not everybody? Um, so like Zane was saying, that trying to find the right stats and tracking them is kind of difficult. So they made no promises um, on trying to do that. I think there was even a question about, and I think they didn't understand it. Someone had said, "What about seasonal stats?" And this is something we've brought up in the past, and a lot of people have brought up in the past,
yeah.
having a stat section for that season as opposed to a lifelong stat section. But they didn't recognize the question, like they didn't understand it at the time, so it never got answered. So it doesn't sound like
hmm
anything's coming as far as seasonal stats.
yeah, un-
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
um, I thought this question was a little curious. Which community has more Xbox
Or more
players
players.
or more
Yeah,
players? Uh, Xbox, PlayStation, or Switch? And obviously, Xbox has a bigger player pool because
the game's been out
it's
longer
been
for the
around the
Xbox.
longest,
Yeah,
right? So, um,
but they did think
but
that PlayStation may have the largest pool of players, potential players maybe. Um, and I've never seen stats on this outside of, for bigger or anything, like just outside of how many Xbox players there are versus PlayStation players. Um, so yeah, maybe there are more PlayStation players out there, because I know PlayStation's kind of huge. Um,
I I think they meant by active players though,
maybe, yeah, it's hard to know. Yeah, maybe.
because that's why it would tie into the PlayStation having a larger pool because it's been more recently released, right? And that's why they kind of mentioned that there's some older Xbox players who are coming back to the game
True. They're starting to see
um,
players who started the game and then went away from it and are starting to come back. Yeah,
because it has changed.
yeah,
So
uh,
it was an interesting question, at
yeah.
least.
It was. Yeah, it was different. Any new titles coming, like the ones for vinyls, or like a thing for vinyls? And they have talked about adding one in for vinyls, so we may see something eventually. And we talked about how partners and developers are going to have a title that they can have, that show up, so that when you're in a lobby with somebody, you'll know that they were a partner or a developer.
Yep.
They talked about that last time too, so it's not the first time it's been mentioned. But they just sort of reiterated that one.
Yeah. Next was a question about next generation console optimizations. And again, they've kind of said it in the past where they're talking about doing it more in the future, but they're not really going to talk about it right now because it would kind of give an unfair advantage to people on the older
Right?
consoles.
Yeah.
But they said stay
Yeah.
tuned.
So and yeah, so it sounds like it's something that they're thinking about. And they had talked about this before in the past too. Someone had asked about optimizing for the PS5, and there's the Xbox One X. So if you get higher frame rates, that kind of thing. So I think it's something that they're looking at, but it might take a while. What
Yeah.
was the reasoning behind choosing a third person camera versus a first person? Um, Zane wasn't really around at the time because he's only been there for a year. Um, some things have brought up how first person does induce more motion sickness than like a third person view does, um, and that's true. So like I guess in a way you're trying to expand your player base by having an option that is less likely to induce motion sickness. Um, but they also like they like how it's a little different to for this type of game to be in a third person view, um, which you typically see in more of a BR kind of style game. So that's like the difference, right? Because you got your BR style games, which are typically third person, and I guess your RPG type of games too. And then you have your traditional kind of shooting first person shooter games, which are always in the first person view. And this is almost like a mix of the two, right? Because it's not a BR, but and it's a little bit more of a shooter. Um, but they give you the third person view. Um, One thing they were talking about is how it helps you with your awareness of your surroundings more. Because when you're in that third person, I find this like, and you have it in Tarkov. When you're in Tarkov, you're like you only got this view, and that's like your helmet view or whatever, and that's basically it. You get your gun up or whatever, and but that's your limited view of the world, and it's hard because to really look around when you're in that view. I find,
Yeah.
whereas this makes it a little bit easier to look around, because if I'm running in this direction, I can turn my head and look in this direction. You can kind of do that in first person, but it's not quite as to me it's not quite as
Yeah.
natural. And so I like the ability of being able to look around my character and have a more complete view of what's happening around my character. um, Now they did make reference to some of the things you can do in third person view that you can't necessarily do in real life, is being able to peek corners without peeking corners,
Yeah.
like in Tarkov they have the lean, right? Where like you could be facing a corner, you can sort of lean out, so only part of you's out instead of your whole body. They don't have that in this game, so the only way around it is to have a third person view with a bit of a view around it. And I think that's something that it's a balancing thing. Is how do they allow you to have more awareness around you without giving you too much of an advantage of being able to look around corners? And yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah. In my mind, like for this type of game, like third person peek is like way better than like the field of view
Yeah.
first person. And um, honestly, I wouldn't not want it any other way than it is right
No,
now.
yeah, like I can't see like that's what Tarkov is more or less is. It's the first person view. If this
Yeah.
was the first person view, I don't know if I would enjoy it as much. Um,
No.
for one, outfits don't matter anymore. Even though even Tarkov you can change your outfit too, but great, you're not looking at your character when you're running out there in the outlands. Here I can see my character. I can enjoy how they look.
Yeah.
I can see when somebody shoots him, I can see the blood splat. From the shot, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
I like those kind of touches, so I do prefer it this way myself too.
Yeah. It's it's definitely like not a lot of people understand how to use the third person peek, like especially newer
Mm.
players. Like,
Hmm.
uh, a lot of them will just run out in the open and not think about it. But it's a skill you acquire
Yeah,
eventually.
and that's the game. That's one of the things you learn about the game is how to take advantage of everything, like of the view of the sound. It's another one of those games. Sound is very important, so you should be playing with headphones. Even if they're not the top end headphones, any kind of headphones will give you an advantage over playing on a TV with TV speakers, because you're going to miss stuff. You might have a really good surround sound system, and that might help you to a point, But when you have headphones on, when you can, like, you're running around and you hear like a crunch, and you know, oh wait, that a footstep? You can stop and listen. You may not hear that crunch if you're playing on like TV speakers or on computer speakers that aren't, you know, right on your head. So
Mhm.
sound is very important in this game. Yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
100%.
Let's
Uh,
see. Oh, there was something about morning maintenance, and it was something to do with Xbox purchases, so it's not really
yeah,
worth
skip,
talking about.
skip that.
Yeah. PC release, again, they're not looking at it, so you know, if it ever happens,
Yeah,
it's not going to be anytime soon. It may not
yeah,
be for years if
yeah,
do it. Um,
yeah.
Again, the armor plate thing. This is where they were talking about. Someone was saying they feel armor plate gives an advantage to higher players. We already talked about that, so we don't have to go into it. Um, Grenades and Molotovs got brought up again. They mentioned that they do kind of want to do it, but it's not going to happen right now. And it comes down to time, resources, and ability.
Yeah.
So for making sure it's going to work right, and that takes a lot. Like that, they're a small team, so if they're going to do these things, they're probably going to have to commit a significant amount of resources, like people, to doing it right, and so that's going to take away from other things. So, and they even mentioned there's other
Yeah.
things they want to focus on first. So it may come, but it's not going to come anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think this, like that last point is, there has been a change in leadership, right, and
Yeah.
direction. And I honestly think this season is kind of transition season, even season 8. And then after that, we'll have like, they'll have a roadmap for the following
Yeah.
seasons. Uh, so I'm hoping like it's more like a short term pains over for long term gains type
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, next question. Actually, I think it was G40
I
Chris
think it
who
was. Yeah.
threw this out. An app to access shelter and build while not at home type thing. So instead of like being at home on your Xbox, if there was a way to actually like craft weapons and stuff like
hmm
that, it's a good idea. And again, it comes down to
Development.
time and
Yeah.
resources and stuff like that. Um, you know, like if Vigor wasn't free and it was part of the Game Pass, it's like maybe it could be on xCloud and all that
Right.
stuff, and you'd be able to do it. But yeah, it's definitely not on their radar, and it's not something they're
Yeah.
looking at.
And there's kind of precedent. Like there are games that have interactive apps that can work with the games. I'm thinking. I think Destiny. I'm not sure necessarily apps, but I think with Destiny you can log into a website and have some limited functionality with your inventory and that kind of stuff. Um, and that's the only one that pops into my head because that's one I've actually used and seen. So there might be others, but no, I get what he's trying to say, and it'd be interesting, but it'd take a lot of development. You know, it'd be kind of cool,
Yeah,
but
and
yeah,
yeah, that idea kind of came from that previous question where can we just
yeah,
automate
the
like
queuing of
10
weapons and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. The next question was any changes to the locked exits, and again they kind of said they're reevaluating them and they may be reworking them with some tweaks and stuff like that for next
yeah.
season.
Yeah, and that was
So
essentially it. Like, yeah, they talk about doing exits, but that was like the pretty much the last question. And then that was kind of where they left off there. So it was a good dev stream. You know, and it's kind of the similar with these dev streams. You get a lot of repeated questions. You get a lot of people in the chat who are always harping about one thing or another, and you know, posting the same thing over and over again. And it's like the anonymity of the internet sometimes makes people jerks. Sometimes, quite often makes people jerks. And you know, it's Lonnie has a thing. It's like it's nice to be nice, you know, and it's true. You know, these are people. You know, it's a job for them, but it's not just a job. It's a game that they're developing that they enjoyed. You know, they play it too, right? So it's like
yep.
there may be problems with the game, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't complain about problems, but take into account you're talking to people, and if you're working, like I work in IT, and if I'm working and I have somebody who comes in at me and is, really rude and thinks that because they're from whatever department at whatever level of pay that they can order me around, or tell and boss me around and tell me what to do, um, that's going to affect my job. That's going to affect the quality of job I do for that person. Like I may not give them my all because I think you're a jerk. I'm just gonna, I'll give you the bare minimum and that's it. Um, so it's the same. These people are developing a game, but it's also a job, and no one
Yeah.
wants to deal with jerks in their job. And so
Yeah.
don't be a jerk. you know,
Yeah.
Realize they're human
Don't.
beings. Treat people with some kindness.
Yeah.
No.
Constructive criticism. It's like,
Yeah.
it 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 doesn't take a lot to be nice to someone and just
Hmm.
kindly, suggest things or provide feedback and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people actually forget that this game is free, and the
Hmm.
fact that like there's nothing else like it. It's free. If you want to play like Tarkov on PC, I think the minimum price is fifty
Yeah,
dollars,
40
if
to
I'm not
$50
mistaken.
for the base level alpha build. And that gets you like the
Yeah,
smallest level of inventory. It gets you maybe a few weapons to start out with each wipe, but very little. But if you really want to take a full advantage of that game, you're paying like the $180 version to get the full
yep,
inventory, the extra stuff that you get from every, at the beginning of a build, however many rubles you start out with at the beginning of each wipe, you know, you're paying for that. So that there's a big difference between like the cheapest and the most expensive in Tarkov, where in this game it's free. And so, you know, cut them a little slack. And don't think that
yep,
they're ignoring you just because they're not answering your question. If it's a question that's been asked a million times and maybe they have answered it, sometimes they might think, okay, no, we've answered that question. Maybe you haven't seen the answer, but the answer may be out there if you just do a little bit of digging. Yeah.
yep.
Anyways, saying thanks for listening. um, yeah, it's another little bit long one. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully some of the stuff we talked about was useful, and some of the suggestions we had were good. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Again, I'm Dr. Anton,
And I'm DJ Spencer.
and until next time, we'll see you out in the outlands. Have a great night. Take care.
Bye.